Hello, everyone, and welcome to Set the Captives Free Ministries podcast, Fight Until the Bell Rings, providing Christ-centered solutions to the bewildered believer, teaching them to do the very thing that it says in its own title. Today's message is called, How Can I Reach My Neighborhood for Christ? See, I was on vacation recently, and it just so happens that I was able to attend a Bible study, because I'm weird like that. For me, uh, a vacation is being able to go to a Bible study and being in fellowship with other believers. But that's another story for another time. While I was at this Bible study, the pastor asked me this question: How can I reach my neighborhood for Christ? And he was speaking in a more general sense of how can his church reach the neighborhood that they're in for Christ. And and I thought it was an excellent question. I mean, quite frankly, I jumped for joy. And what made it even crazier for me was the fact that I couldn't answer it right away. Because as soon as he asked me, there was a lady who was blocked in by my car, so I needed to let her out. So, here I am as I'm backing the car out. I'm bursting with excitement to be able to answer the very question that I have dedicated my life to being able to provide a solution for. I mean, as I've stated with the slogan for Set the Captives Free Ministries is Christ-centered solutions for the bewildered believer. And the fact of the matter is that evangelism is something that every church, and I can say this without even the slightest fear of hesitation, every church sees the need to improve upon, or at least should see the need to improve upon. I mean, really, let's not kid ourselves here. If your church, if you believe that your church has it all figured out and has their act together completely, and they're perfect in their evangelistic efforts, well, uh, you're probably kidding yourself. It's probably not the case. You probably just don't have any understanding of what it's supposed to be like, because it's something that every church always needs improvement on. So, if I have offended any church, I apologize. Maybe you do have an excellent evangelism ministry, but there's always room to grow. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that there is always room to grow. I mean, really, if we were perfect, then why are we still down here on earth? If we were perfect, we might as well just go straight up to heaven, right? So with all of that being said, really, what should be said first, before asking how can I reach my neighborhood for Christ, we should ask ourselves, why should I reach my neighborhood for Christ? And, maybe that's kind of a crazy, maybe even heartless sounding thing. It's not. It's something that you need to take a moment to examine it for yourself. Why should I reach my neighborhood? I mean, we constantly hear the Bible passages, Matthew 28 and Mark 16. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. Go therefore and preach the gospel to every creature, to all creation. But for some reason, we think that we all need to just go to this unreached country. We think that we have to go to an obscure mountain village in Turkey, or a remote tropical island in the Fiji region of the world, where it's not likely that they've ever seen somebody with white skin or speaks English. I mean, those people need Christ. There is no doubt about it. They need it. They need Christ. But do we really need to actually go all the way over there in order to fulfill what Jesus said to do for all creation? I mean, let's look at let's look at a largely overlooked element of the Great Commission that's found in Acts chapter 1, verse 8. But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, and in all Judea and Samaria, and to the end of the earth. So that was also included in all of the things that Jesus commissioned us with. And you know, I look at this verse, and I look at the general passage, and I look at the timeline in the history of the early church where they're being commissioned. And Jesus is saying a lot of very important things. I mean, it's the last words of our Lord Jesus Christ before he ascended into heaven. And generally, when orders are given, the most important order is given last because it needs to be the freshest in your memory. Now, for those of you in the military, if that's not the case, just humor me here. Just roll with it. That's usually how it is in a kitchen. When a chef gives you directions, the most important thing they need you to do is whatever they tell you last. So, there. Ha! With all of that being said, yes, Jesus is speaking about all nations, all creation, every creature. But he is also saying, starting in your local area. Start with Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, and then the ends of the earth. Now, it doesn't mean that there's like this spiral pattern or like this system of evangelism and missions that Jesus laid out for us necessarily. But the general idea of, I believe, why he was saying this was to make it much more feasible for everybody to do this. I mean, for example, I'm always in need of financial support for this mission. This mission is possible because of God's providence through the generosity of you, the listeners, you, my fellow Christians, who pay attention to my teachings and are blessed by it in some way. If I just suddenly said, well, you know what, I need about $1,800 a month, which is really not true, I don't need that much, but if I just came up with a crazy amount of money and said, you need to donate at least $800 every month in order for this to happen. Just you. And then I'll be all set. If you gave me $800 a month, I'd be all set. Would you even so much as turn your wrist over to look at your watch to give me the time of day? Of course not. Because, I mean, that's a lot to ask of a single person. Now, if I said $2, how about $2 a month? I mean, really, what's $2 really going to do? $2 isn't going to hurt you, but it's really going to help me, right? Because what I'm asking is much more reachable. $2 is a whole lot more reachable than $800. So in the same way, Jesus is saying, in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, and then the ends of the earth. And it kind of ended up happening in that order anyway. I mean, look at a map. I mean, Jerusalem is in the middle of Judea, and then Samaria is outside of Judea, and then you have the rest of the world. So the point is, you should start where you are, because you're much more likely to start if you start right where you are. Don't worry, I was not going to say where you're at. I don't play like that. But the fact that people are hesitant about doing evangelism, it can definitely be shown in statistics. I mean, Lifeway research found that 80% of churchgoers know that they need to share their faith, but only 61% Well, actually, I can't say only 61, but 61% haven't even told a single person to become a Christian in the past 6 months. And honestly, I'm kind of speechless at the matter. I mean, so more than half of the people who are sitting in your church at any given moment, according to this Lifeway research, more than half of the people in your church have not even so much as said to another person that they should become a Christian in the past 6 months. I mean, it's April right now, so like basically, they haven't said a word about why somebody should become a Christian to a non-Christian since October, or even earlier than that. That's kind of sad and that's kind of scary. But I sincerely believe that one of the biggest reasons is because they feel like too much is being asked. Do you have to sign up for a mission in Uganda? No. Do you have to go to some unreached Muslim village on a mountain in Turkey? No. Do you need to sneak in across the border of North Korea smuggling in Korean Bibles? No. You don't need to do any of that just to be doing evangelism. Start where you are. So there's the why. There's the why on why should I reach my neighborhood for Christ. Because it's where I am. Now for the how. I can't say it's easy, but I can say it's simple. Easy meaning not a whole lot of work. Simple meaning not a whole lot of components and not a whole lot of material or resources required. First, you need to find a map of your area. As local as you can find it. So you go to like a gas station. Chances are you're going to find a map of at least your state. And if that's the most local you can find, that's fine. But if you can even get smaller and get like a map of just your neighborhood, like if you live in like a little hamlet or something like that, where everybody knows your name, so even if you live in a small setting like that, find a map if you can, and put it in a place where you spend the most time in prayer. And the reason why you need to put it in a place where you spend a lot of time in prayer is because you need to just focus on that map, because it represents your neighborhood, it represents your area, your quote-unquote Jerusalem. This is going to get your heart in good running order for your job ahead. Always start out with prayer. It was well said by, I call him a borderline street preacher because there are days where I respect him and days where I don't respect him as much. But his name is Jesse Morrell. He is a very intense street preacher. He made an incredible quote on Facebook once, and he said, "Evangelism without prayer is insane, and prayer without evangelism is hypocrisy. You can't have one without the other." So it's a very, very good thing to think about. So you need to be praying for the lost, of course, but you also need to be reaching them. You need to be reaching the lost, of course, but you also need to be praying for them. That's what really gives you the power. So next, for the application of all of your prayer and conditioning, you need to examine your daily routine. Who do you encounter regularly? Where do you go on a daily basis? Do you travel a lot, or do you pretty much just go to work and then come straight home? Like, are you stuck in that commuter's rut? For many years, I've been stuck in that commuter's rut myself, and so I've had to come up with ways to cope. And it's hard. It's hard for traveling people to understand what it's like to be caught in the commuter's rut, because I'll be talking to somebody and it's like, I wish I could go out and share the gospel. Oh, Willie, just share the gospel wherever you go. That's the problem. I go to work, I see the same people every day, and that sort of activity is forbidden. So I can't preach the gospel there. I can't share my faith there because I've been told, been proactively warned not to do that. And there's plenty of places where you're not allowed to. It's fine. I come home and I take care of my family. Of course, I'm ministering to my family, but that is not the same as evangelism. That is ministering to your family. And then I go to church and I minister to people there, and I'm ministered to myself. But it's still not evangelism. I was stuck in that sort of rut for many years, and it drove me crazy. So I came up with ways to cope. So first, if you aren't able to travel, deliberately work in time with your schedule to walk around your neighborhood. Just take a walk around the block, or the parking lot of your apartment complex, or something, and offer a gospel tract to anyone you see. You don't necessarily have to stop and have a conversation with them, but just give them a gospel tract. Do it however you want. I mean, you can set it up in a way where you can have a conversation, or just here's something. It's a gospel tract. Have a great day. More importantly, look for local events like parades and festivals, and just make a day of it. I mean, there are times when I can just go to a local parade, and hand out 500 gospel tracts and not even think a thing of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's simple. So it takes a lot of scheduling. And it can make you a little nutty if those plans have to get changed. Like if it rains on the parade day and then you're not able to make it to the rain date, well, it can make you a little nutty. So pray hard, my friend. Hang in there. But if you do travel, make sure you got plenty of gospel tracts on hand anywhere you go, and everyone you encounter, such as cashiers, receptionists, even just people standing in line, people sitting next to you on the bus or the plane or whatever, give them each a gospel tract as you leave. Now, if you have enough time for a conversation, like if you got a plane, you got a long plane ride or a long train ride or bus ride or whatever, take a chance to share it verbally. You kind of have a captive audience right there. And the great evangelist Ray Comfort always says there's no such thing as an atheist in an air pocket. So they'll listen to you if there's a little turbulence on the plane. And leave gospel tracts in areas where they'll be found without littering. So like gas pumps, hotel desks, like in the room, they always have a little nightstand desk where they have the Gideon Bible. Leave a gospel tract in there. Park benches, etc. You get the point. But don't just throw it on the ground. Don't just put it on top of the garbage, hope that people see it. That's kind of silly. But just keep in mind that no amount of evangelism is too small as long as it's done. I mean, as I said, more than half of the church is not even making any kind of effort for months at a time. So even the smallest amount of work will be highly, highly valued. More importantly, remember that no one is unsavable. Everyone is capable of being reached for the gospel of Christ, as long as you reach them. It's all that matters. As long as there's breath in their lungs, they're capable of being reached through the power of God unto salvation of our Lord Jesus Christ. So thank you all very much for listening. And as always, this is Willie Needham reminding you to fight until the bell rings. Thank you for tuning in to the Set the Captives Free Ministries weekly podcast, Fight Until the Bell Rings. To write to us or send a donation by mail, our mailing address is P.O. Box 467, Modena, New York, 12548. For more information, call 855-507-0379 or go to www.scfministry.com for awesome evangelism resources. Thank you very much, and God bless.